Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to What is America to You. I'm your host, Derek Dempsey. I'm coming at you from New York. And when I say we are coming at you, I mean me and Jessica.
How you doing?
Okay, so listen, before we start the show, really quick, we always talk to you about subscribe to our channel. Well, we're at 198. So that means if we get 2 more subscribers, we will have 7.3 billion subscribers. Because I've never been great at mathematics, but I think that's true. We're the highest rated show on the internet for being the lowest rated show. Isn't that an amazing achievement? Okay, so also, please give us a like. No thumbs down yet. We'll have enough of those eventually. And I also want to say to commenters, people who comment in the video section, my sister-in-law Karen and my friend Sam, we really appreciate it. Medals and love to you. Okay, now this show is special in a way to me because this is one of my heroes, and when I arrived in America 20 years ago, I brought with me his album, which I won't say the name of because I don't want to give it away yet, and that album helped me through snowstorms and broken down shitty cars, and the album was just I'm going to get emotional at some stage about this. I was telling
Hang on to it, Derek.
All right, I will. I stood at a mall for an hour and a half one night in a snowstorm at 1:30 when they used to play movies late, with no car, with no driver's license, no nothing, and I played a particular song from this great album from '99. The song was called Right About Now. I played it over and over and over, and I was lonely standing there, and I'm listening to this beautiful Canadian voice, and it was like telling me everything's going to be okay. So anyway, now I'll get down to professional. Elvis Costello said of our next guest, he has one of the purest seams of melody that he has access to exclusively since Paul McCartney. And that's true. He was the Songwriter of the Year in 2005 at the Juno Awards. He's also performed live with Leonard Cohen and Elvis Costello, which we hope to get to later. His songs have been sung by Katie Lang, Nick Lowe, Rod Stewart, Mary Wilson, Chris Martin, Marieke Jager, I hope I pronounced that name right, and Emmylou Harris, the genius Emmylou Harris. His debut novel, Dear Life, spelt D-E-E-R, released in September 2017, available on Amazon. On Amazon, do I hear the clicks? People buying it on Amazon? I hope. And it's described by the author as a grown-up fairy tale. Okay, his latest album, Hermitage, is what I believe all artists should aim for, and that is to make it their greatest work to date. And I think it is his greatest work to date. His singing is incredible on it. Hermitage is overflowing with lush melodies that take you by pleasant and welcome surprise. Turns of phrases that take the history of the word, what is found below the word, before it, ahead of it, above it and below it, then deliver it to the listener in the most unique way, right to our hearts and ears. So, without further ado, it's a great honour, and my personal great honour, to introduce to you Ron Sexsmith. Ron, welcome to What is America to You. How are you?
Hi, Derek. I'm good. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Ron. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. And just for the listeners, for now we know who our guest is, and he's Canadian, and Jessica's Canadian, so it's great.
And for our listeners too, it's November the 2nd today. Are you guys got a lot of snow up there, Ron?
Yeah, last night we got a bit of a snowstorm. I wasn't quite ready for it, but now we have a really bright sunny day today, so I imagine all this snow will be gone in a few hours.
Well, I'm going to be corny and say, well, it isn't April after all. I swear I will never be corny in the show again after that. But it's what a song. All right, so listen, as I said to you, I've been listening to Hermitage, and my friend Mick McDonald, my friend David Dash, and my brother Carl, we're all huge fans. We're male groupies, and I hope I don't chase you off the phone. We love your music, we love you. So on Hermitage, just to run through a few things, and then you can take it from there. Chateau Mermaid, beautiful. Glow in the Dark Stars, incredible. Lo and Behold, incredible. Small-Minded World, your voice on that, it's just a slight lower range than normal. Spring of the Following Year, and then my favourite at the moment is Shape of, whatever shape your heart is in. So I'd love to, if you want to talk about any of the songs, tell us a bit about the recording and the strings on whatever shape your heart is in, Ron. I just want to know about those.
Yeah, well, that song, I wrote in part after the last U.S. election. Almost like a friend talking to another friend. Because I knew a lot of people in America were pretty upset about the results. And so that song came quite easily. It's the only song on the record where there are sort of extra musicians, because I played pretty much everything myself except for the drums. And that one, we just felt, it could really benefit from a real string section. Because I actually did try to, play a sort of a synth arrangement, which it just felt didn't really do it justice. And my drummer, he's also a producer of other people, and he had used this same fellow on our last record to do strings on a few songs. And I'm sort of blanking on his name right now. Oh, Drew. His name is Drew Jarecki, I think. And he's just a whiz kid, He works very quickly. He plays everything himself. So you send him the track, and he kind of arranges it and records and sends it back. So we were both really blown away by what he came up with, and because that was just it wasn't a hard song to write. It came quite easily. In fact, all these songs did, because I wrote them shortly after moving to my new town of Stratford from Toronto, and I didn't really know anybody, and so I spent a lot of time by myself, walking to town and then playing the piano, and I was just so inspired by the changes of having owning a house for the first time. And it's a very we're surrounded by trees on all sides. I never heard birds in Toronto, and all of a sudden we got so many birds and rabbits and things. And so like a song like Spring of the Following Year, we first saw the house in November, and my wife and I were both imagining how pretty it was going to look in the spring, So that song almost wrote itself. Chateau Mermaid is basically the name I've given to my house, because I felt, I was sort of looking for my own version of Graceland, I guess. And when I saw this place, I thought, well, it needs a good name, because it just spoke to me. This place. It's just an old farmhouse, but it spoke to me, and So I can't remember what other songs you mentioned, but they were all the songs came pretty swiftly, and didn't give me too much trouble.
It's interesting you say that about your own Graceland. I've been to Graceland. I'm sure you've been there, and there's something about that Graceland and Charlie Chaplin's Mana de Bois, which I can't pronounce because I can't barely speak English and I'm French, but I've been there to Switzerland, to his home, and it's just their energy is there. And it's funny, my wife and I bought a house in 2007 and we call it Wisteria House after a Dan Fogelberg song, so I get you completely on that.
So it's really and that was all just sort of about 4 years ago we moved, and we've really settled in here, and it just seems it's great to get at my age, in 50s, to feel like you've got a new start or something.
Yeah. Well, just going back to the strings, that's great because they stood out to me so much, and you can hear. I spoke to my friend David Dash last night, and he came up with a great phrase. There's a grainy immediacy about the strings, and you can hear the fingers, you can hear the bow, you can hear the resin, you can hear the chair, you can hear the wood, you just hear the real strings, and it reminded me of Haydn, but also it reminded me of the George Martin strings and the Beatles songs, and I know you're a huge Beatles fan.
Yeah. I've always loved, even on the early records I did with Mitchell, like the third one got very lush with strings and horns and everything. And it's just, it just sort of makes everything sound better. It gives you chills. And I've done, over the years, even a few records I did with Martin Treffy, we had this great arranger from Nashville who did strings. I can't remember, his name was Dave Davidson. And, but you have a song, a track that you're happy with, and then it just takes it up a few notches, and it just, I guess that's why so many movies benefit from strings too. Certain scenes, you hear the cello come in, and it tugs on your heartstrings in a nice way.
Yeah, it does. And the thing about like fake strings are fine in certain like incidents are fine, but you know when you hear real strings, and they say that the violin, the cello are closest to the human voice, and I think that's why it works so well, especially with a voice like yours. And that's where I want to go on to that. I want to throw a few things at you. The Balfour Brothers, Lyle Lovett and Bob Dylan. I know Dylan is a huge influence on you, but I wonder what your thoughts are on Lyle Lovett, Balfour Brothers, and Bob Dylan, particularly his Great American Songbook albums, Shadows in the Night, and then the follow-up. So yeah.
Who was the first group you mentioned?
The Balfour Brothers. They're a Canadian band. What's that? That's a style of music. I'm sorry, I can't think of the style now. They sing in French, Creole kind of.
Oh, yeah. I'm not really familiar with them.
Okay.
The only one I can really talk about, I guess, is Dylan, because I know I'm aware of Lyle Lovett, but I haven't yet anyway zeroed in on his music.
Right.
When all that stuff was coming out, when Lyle came out at the same time, I think around the same time as like Dwight Yoakam and all those people, right? It was a sort of this new wave of country writers, and I wasn't at the time. My attention was elsewhere, so I never really heard it. I have friends who are big fans of it, and I know what he sounds like. I know he's a great singer, and so he's someone I need to investigate, But Dylan, obviously.
Go ahead, sir.
How can you? Dylan's, those are big shoes to try to walk in, and it took me a while because, I was mostly as a kid into English music, like the Kinks and groups like that, and it wasn't until my, maybe late teens or early 20s I really fell hard for Bob. And I remember not knowing which album to buy. I went to the record store, and I just picked up this one. It was New Morning, and that was the first Dylan album I owned. And to this day, it's still my favorite. And but then, once I had that record, it became my mission to hear them all. And you mentioned the one was it called Shadows in the Night? Shadows
in the Night, yeah. They call it the Sinatra album, but look, if you're singing the Great American Songbook and you blindly pick any song, most likely Sinatra sang it, but it wasn't a Sinatra tribute album. It was a Great American Songbook tribute album.
I love the record, and because he obviously has so much respect for the material. I think in recent years, Dylan has kind of been like almost a historian. Like even those albums he did in the 90s, where he was doing old folk songs and things. It was really kind of educational, and I love the songs he chose. I was familiar with most of them, but there's a few that I didn't know, and he's just singing them so good. I got to see him at Royal Albert Hall on that tour, I guess, and it was so amazing to see him like singing, What'll I Do, just standing at center stage holding a microphone, and I've always loved his voice anyway, but I just think on that record he's it's just. He's delivering the songs in a way that, just makes you kind of stand up and listen and take notice.
What you said about you can hear his respect. A couple of things you talked about the stuff in the 90s. The album as good as I've been to you. He did Froggy Went a Courtin' and Hard Times. That's a great album. It's just him and a guitar. It's an incredible album. I think it was from 91. And then you said about singing there with the standing. What'll I Do? But there's a song on that he does, and Sinatra did it in 47 or 49 on Columbia. That Lucky Old Son. And if you listen, Ron, to both of them, I'll send them to you along with that Ron. The Lyle Lovett album. But if you listen to Sinatra's version and then listen to Bob Dylan, I almost imagine he said to the guys in the studio, hang on, let me listen to Sinatra one more time, because he's almost identically phrasing. It's incredible. I just love the album. Yeah,
and I think Frank, I've heard, I don't know for sure, but I think Frank had a lot of respect for Bob. Frank was very critical of rock and roll and all that, but I think they met a couple occasions, and even before Frank died, there was a tribute concert to him on television, and Bob performed. He was the only one that sang. He sang his own song. Like I'm trying to remember which one it was.
I think it's called Lost Goodbye. The Long Goodbye.
Yeah, was that what it was?
I think so, Ron. You had Long Goodbye.
Yeah, and he sang it, and it was amazing to see because they kept going back and forth from Dylan to a sort of a close-up of Frank's face. He was listening really intently, and I think even someone told me it may have been a song that Frank had asked him to sing too, or maybe he was familiar with it. But yeah, so I mean, it's Dylan's kind of the best person in a way to turn people on to Frank. I mean, not that Frank needs any help or anything like that, but I think you know what I mean. Like Dylan, obviously, there's a lot of weight to whatever he gets involved in, and I didn't hear the other records that he did after Shadows in the Night, which I meant to, but I think my favorite on that record is the one he does. It's something about he leaves the keys in the door. He goes around the world or something. I can't remember what it's called now.
I don't know what you're talking about. Why Try to Change Me Now? It's a classic.
Yeah, Why Try and Change Me Now? That's my favorite on the record.
Now, are you a big Sinatra fan? Because let me just throw a few things at you so you can take off on this. Some of the stuff on the new album, and really a lot of your stuff, could have been written in the 70s. And like Joe Raposo wrote stuff for Sinatra. And that stuff that Sinatra did in the late 60s and 70s, it was influenced, no doubt, by the Beatles, because the people who wrote then, like Joe Raposo, was, but it was also harking back to the great American songbook right back to the 20s. But there's an album Sinatra did called Watertown, and when I hear your new album, I keep getting drawn to Watertown, and it was written by the guy from Bob Gaudio from the Four Seasons.
Four Seasons, yeah.
You know that, right? And then Jake Holmes, who lives in the Hudson Valley, I met him, he wrote the lyrics. So I feel, when I'm listening, I'm like, this album could have been sung by Sinatra.
Yeah, I mean, I think I always thought that it maybe Frank or even Tony Bennett could have, if I could have got with them and played them some songs, there may be a few that they would have liked or something, like April After All or something, and, Foolproof or something. Most of the time I'm just writing and I'm not really thinking about the genre or anything like that. But every now and then there'll be a song that it just feels like it's written in that American songbook kind of tradition, like Wasting Time, and my songs have been covered a fair bit, but those great songwriters from back then, I mean, they really had some great singers, too, not just Sinatra, but I love Bing Crosby a lot, and Ella, and the singers back then, they weren't so. They didn't have as much affectation, they sang the song, they had their own voice and their style, but it didn't feel like they went and made up a voice somewhere and then throw that over everything, like, you wonder sometimes, I mean, I don't want to knock anybody, but someone like Sam Smith, you wonder, does he sound like that when he sings Happy Birthday too? Like everything is coming from this sort of same emotional place. But I think all my favorite singers from that era, and people like Dusty Springfield,
Oh, I love her.
Like, when she would sing like a Randy Newman song, it was just like, can you imagine being Randy Newman, hearing that? I mean, that's just the highest honor. And
what was that Randy Newman song she sang from All Her Faces? It's brilliant. I can never think of the title of it.
Well, my favorite is she does I Think It's Gonna Rain Today. She also did one called I Don't Want to Hear It, that I think Scott Walker did as well, but her version is so great, and but she really had good taste in songs, and she always knew how to pick them, and there were plenty of good songs to go around.
Sorry, Ron. I want to go back to what you said about affectation and Happy Birthday. I mean, I can't believe I'm hearing you saying this, because it is my language of speaking. I always say your voice you've got great diction, great timbre, great delivery. There's no bullshit. There's no I'm going to sound like somebody. You sound like Ron Sexsmith. End of story. And I don't want to get all over the place, because we are going to get to you singing with Elvis Costello in a moment, and show the video of you singing with him at the what was the name of the sessions, yeah. But when you said about Happy Birthday, I always say that too. I sing and I give lessons over the years, and I say to people at the beginning of a lesson, sing Happy Birthday. This is why it's incredible that you said that. And they sing it and they go, Happy Birthday to you. And I say, now let's put it aside. We tape it on the phone, and at the end of the lesson I play it back for them, and I say, this is how you should sing. No affectation, because it's before we learn to impersonate Elvis or Britney Spears or whoever. So to hear you say that was quite amazing for me personally.
Well, you know, I mean, I like everyone else. I've had my influences when I was young, trying to sound like whoever I was listening to. And then, but you know, ultimately, it's about finding your voice somewhere in. You're a hybrid of all these influences. I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of Ray Davies. I think people hear that in my music. Anyone who was melodic, I was a fan of. And even throughout my records, if you go back to my first one to the present, I've been whittling away at my voice the whole way, trying to get better. Because the early records, I think my voice vibrated too much, and it was a bit, nasally, I found. And then there were some records where I was trying to produce a rounder tone. You know, I thought that would be more pleasing to the ear or something. And then some albums where I felt I went overboard with that, you know. But always trying to find my voice, always trying to sing as good as I can. And I really didn't feel until Retriever, which came out, I think, 2004, that's when I really felt I started to sing, you know, the way I'd hoped. I mean, I'm still really proud of the early records, but, you know, sometimes I wish I could go back and like, you know, the first album, for example, I was so impressionable. You know, Mitchell Froome said he liked the way I backphrased, like Little Jimmy Scott, and I didn't know who Little Jimmy Scott was.
Oh, he's amazing.
I know, now I do. I mean, I investigated, but I know when I hear that record, I can hear myself trying to impress Mitchell with backphrasing, and you know, because I don't know, I didn't really know what I was doing, so I probably would have sung that album a whole lot straighter now, but then it wouldn't have been that album, and that album sort of, you know, put me near the map, I guess.
Okay, that's the end of part one of our great interview with the amazing Ron Sexsmith on What is America to You. Stay tuned, part two coming right at you.
Driving along, minding my own business, heading east through the Kentucky rain. There on the radio, Johnny Cash was singing. I heard myself just to see if I still feel pain.